Hey everyone, welcome to the broadcast for today. Towards the future. Towards the future. Yes. It's been a while since I've had this show here because there's been a lot of things that have come up in April, and here we are in May. So happy May to you all, and I hope you're having a wonderful start to your May. So my name is Autumn Masvidal. I am a self-help coach and motivator to help you live your best life, to help you overcome your obstacles, and to help you truly understand who you are and connect with yourself. That is my main purpose of education and teaching today. And today we're talking about a very interesting topic, cognitive dissonance. So as people start to come in here to the chat, let's just briefly talk about what cognitive dissonance actually is, since the term is quite an interesting one because we may not know what it actually means. Cognitive dissonance is essentially the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, and actions. If some information is presented to us that conflicts with our own beliefs, we can be in a state of cognitive dissonance. And a very good example that I like to use is someone who is a smoker. They continue to smoke, but they know that it's bad for them. It's like, how could something that I enjoy doing, how could something that brings about release and relief be so bad for me? So that's a good example there of cognitive dissonance. Okay? So, I'm curious to know, for anyone who's watching this, what are your thoughts on cognitive dissonance, and what are your own personal struggles with cognitive dissonance? Because we've all had these struggles. We've all had these inconsistent thoughts and beliefs in our mind. Okay? And I am no different. I can briefly talk about my experience with cognitive dissonance as well. Hi Cinder, nice to see you here. So we're talking about cognitive dissonance today. So if you do not know what cognitive dissonance is, it's the state of having inconsistent thoughts and beliefs. So that's what we're talking about today. And this is a very interesting topic because we've all had this state. Okay? So let's say use an example from my life, for example, okay? If I am presented, like if I know that eating a certain type of food, for example, in my mind, I know that it's healthy for me. And then evidence comes out that shows that this food that I've been eating is linked with several types of diseases or cancers or something. And then I'm in the state of, well, I want to eat healthy, but I don't want to have these issues. So I'm in that state of, well, what do I do? And really there are two options you have with cognitive dissonance, and that is to either accept these new beliefs or to reject them. Okay? Usually I'm pretty good at rejecting external beliefs that do not apply to me, okay? And I guess just as an Aries, I am a bit stubborn in that way as well. I can be a bit stubborn with my actions and really block things out and really not listen to it, kind of like if you saw the thumbnail is this woman with her, not really listening. She doesn't want to hear any opposing views. Okay? Now, I tried my best to listen to opposing views, but I'm sure we all know how difficult that can be. Okay? That can be quite difficult to actually do. All right. So, we're just going to hop in here, and I will start talking about cognitive dissonance, what it is, and then I would talk a little bit about some people I've seen comment on my videos who have this cognitive dissonance as well. And then we'll dive into more in depth regarding how it's used as abuse. Cognitive dissonance is used as an abuse tactic by narcissists. We're going to dive into that. And then we're also going to talk about cognitive dissonance in media and television and advertisements. Okay, that is a very big one because they essentially use us and to form this cognitive dissonance to sell products to us. Okay? It's a very, very good marketing tactic, but it's also quite devious in how it's done, okay? So, I made this article here some time ago. When was it? December 4th, 2016. So we're talking about 2.5 years ago I did this article, okay? Cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias, accepting new ideas. So these are two different concepts. Cognitive dissonance is what we discuss, we discuss it right down here. Look, this woman here, she has no idea. All these thoughts going in her mind because cognitive dissonance brings about a lot of confusion. Okay, that's what it's meant to do. It's confusing. Okay. Cognitive dissonance essentially is the state of having inconsistent thoughts and beliefs that conflict with our personal thoughts and beliefs. So as I mentioned with the person with smoking, if they know smoking is bad for them and that it's contributing to, perhaps a lot of their health issues and breathing difficulties and even lung cancer, but they cannot put two and two together. It's like, why am I having such a hard time breathing? Why do I have to deal with this cancer and everything? And again, it's in that state because they can't accept these ideas of what's actually going on. All right. So now confirmation bias I have here is when we're presented with new information that conflicts with our beliefs, then that gives us a reason to dismiss it or throw it out. Okay, so that's like if someone's presenting some evidence to you about something that you are very against or very for, and they give you accurate information about something, then you can use that to actually say, oh, all the more reason why I don't want to associate with that. Okay? Okay. So Stellar says cognitive dissonance thrives in people who are less aware of conscious on their habits and behaviors. Yes. Indeed, that is very, very true. It is people who are less aware of what's going on, and we will get into that once we get to the news media segment, because that one is where everything comes into play, where we are blinded essentially and brainwashed by the news media and advertisements that use cognitive dissonance. Just as this image shows here, it shows like, well, which way do we go? Which way do we go? Left or right? Agree or disagree, and there is no right answer. You have to choose your own way, which is, as you can see, going right in the center. We tend to associate with people that validate our beliefs and ideas. Okay? So, if you have a friend who really goes against your ideas and your thoughts on life, can you still remain friends with that person? For a lot of people, it's very difficult. It really is. If you meet friends and you make friends so you can connect with people who are similar to you. So really, for the most part, you're not really connecting with people who have these really, really different ideas and beliefs. It's mostly people who have very similar beliefs as you do. Okay? There's so much conflict and denial in the world as a result of this. We have to look at the whole picture from an unbiased point of view, okay? And I talk heavily about denial and us facing this denial that we have, us suppressing a lot of these health issues a lot of these ideas and these thoughts that we have that manifest as health issues in our life. When we suppress something, any sort of thing at all, it manifests in our life in some way as an external influence that's going to cause us stress, or it can manifest as a physical ailment. This was a very good example that I had heard before, and listen to how much it makes sense here. So when there was this a woman who, whenever she would get stressed and upset about something, she would essentially just swallow it down. She would just keep it in, and she would swallow it down, okay? She would just build up all this stress inside, and as time went on, she ended up developing stomach cancer or other related cancers related to the digestive tract of her, swallowing down all this stress and tension. Okay, so that's all harboring there. There's many, many things that we cannot see that are contributing to our decline of health. It's not just physical. It's a lot of our emotional that we're putting down. Okay? All right. Or even worse, we could be brainwashed from the ideas we have gathered from television, the internet, and news. Yes, indeed. Such as this picture right here. People in a box, not really knowing what's going on. Okay. Accepting new ideas. So how can you actually then begin to accept some new ideas? We are biased. I just said that again. We are biased people. There's no such thing as unbiased. Now, as unbiased as I try to be, as much as I try to educate, there is no such thing. I have my own bias. I really do. And I educate from the point of view of my own bias, okay? Like, I talk about a lot of natural health remedies and a lot of natural ways to alleviate the symptoms of mental health and physical health conditions, okay? That is my point of view, and that's how I'm educating it from. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell someone to do something that I don't necessarily agree in. I may touch on that topic a little bit, and I may say that I'm not necessarily for that type of idea. But at the same time, I have my own bias, and that's what I educate on, okay? So we all have our own bias. There's no such thing as being unbiased in any situation. But listening to others is a challenge as a result. So we have to come out of that denial and understand fact from opinion and learn. We don't want to believe that something we've been doing for years or beliefs we've had for years could turn out to be false, a lie, or something entirely different from what we initially thought. So if you right now watching this, all of you wonderful people here today, if your main philosophy on life, if you were thinking, like for religion, for example, was a very hot topic, a topic on diets and health and all those sorts of things, you know, healthcare and various health practices. Let's say you strongly believe in those ideas, and then it turned out tomorrow that those ideas were flawed and that what you're doing is actually very harmful to you and other people as well. So how would you think then? What would be going through your mind if you were presented all this information that conflicts with that? Another good example is just, I've talked about, actually we will get into the specific examples right after this in just a moment. But yeah, it's actually very interesting about the type of examples that are out there. Okay, listen and approach from an unbiased point of view. As I said, that's really not possible. But if we truly look at both sides, then we can make our own opinions, okay? When we can make our own opinions, we can make an educated opinion, okay? And this is why I believe in the freedom of speech. This is why I believe in the freedom of expression. We all have the right to express our beliefs. And this is why it's so saddening to see a lot of these companies, these social media companies and YouTube blocking the ability to speak freely. I just recently had, if you've been following me on here, I just recently had a video of mine restricted for hate speech and being offensive and promoting violence by YouTube. YouTube blocked that video based on what other people were saying. This video had nothing of the sort. This was an educational topic that allowed people to think outside the box, okay? So people had to think outside the box of this. So what they did is that they restricted my video. If you go to this video now, I mean, first of all, this video is not going to be recommended to any people anymore. But this video is still on my channel. And if you go to this video, it'll essentially show a warning before the video and essentially say this video may contain something along the lines of like controversial subject matter that may offend some people or something along those lines, okay? And you have to agree to actually go to the video, okay? And then if you look, they don't show any suggested videos. They don't show my icon. They don't show all the wonderful comments that were on it are all gone, okay? I can still see them on my end in the dashboard, but they're all gone. I can't actually see any of those comments at all now. on the actual video. And there were many, many wonderful comments. Not only that, the video had like I want to say around a 75%, maybe a little more, a little less, I don't remember the exact number, thumbs up rating. It wasn't one that was like really, really bad, like, oh, she shouldn't have put this video out. No, there were many, many people who understood this message and understood that I wasn't trying to be offensive with anything. It's the people who don't know me who think I'm being offensive. So because of that, they can't listen to another point of view. So they block my video. Okay? And it is such a shame to actually see that. Okay? Video title, it was about about transgender population control, something along those lines, which was essentially about, of course, if you look at the title, it may seem like, ooh, bit conspiracy theory there. But that's not exactly what it is. I talk about how in animals, when the population increases, there's more gay animals. I talk about how a lot of very, very strong trans activists are trying to limit freedom of speech and expression by saying all these things are offensive. Just as what we're talking about here, they deem it as offensive, so they take it down and take those actions. When all I was trying to do is just to have people think outside the box. I talk about children who are who are used by their parents to essentially they're these drag queens as a kids, and they're very sexualized in the media and online, and that's something that I have very strong concerns over. And I talk about that. That's not being offensive, that's just expressing a concern. That's just talking about something that I was concerned about in this type of topic. And as I said, there are many, many wonderful people that were commented all these wonderful things, who were even transgender themselves. Mind you, some of the most positive comments were from those who were transgender and who were supportive in the community, such as myself. Okay? I'm going to sit here and be mean to people who are transgender. But yeah, I mean, I posted this video a year ago. Okay? And yes, that the baby, that is the title, but people just it was probably a lot of the people who reported it are probably just people who looked at the title and didn't really listen to what I had to say, or who know me, because I don't say it to be offensive. I really don't. I say it with the most positive intent to educate, to make you think outside the box. That's what my intention is, because even though I am biased with my beliefs, I say, don't listen to me, don't listen to the next person, think for yourself. That's the most important thing. Let yourself be vulnerable during moments of learning. Yes, we have to be vulnerable in order for us to learn. So, in order for us to learn, we have to step away from what's going to offend us. And offense is something that we take personally. It's essentially building a wall up so something doesn't hurt us, and it's like breaking down that. No, we can't do that. We have to let us feel anger or being upset and let whatever comes to us, and then we learn. There's so many arguments because people get into all these arguments about who's right and who's wrong, when neither are right and neither are wrong. People have different views than we do. That's the hardest thing for us to comprehend. I could talk about, let's say I talk about how this herbal remedy has benefited my life in so many wonderful ways. Then there's going to be a bunch of people who say, I had tried this herbal remedy and it sucked. It did all these bad things to me. You're not right. I did all the scientific research. There's no benefits as you're describing. Again, that's a different viewpoint. If I say that it helped me and there's so many other people that it's helped, that's a different viewpoint. But who's right in this situation? Does anyone know who may be right in that situation? It would be neither one of us and both of us at the same time. And here's why, because we're all unique and we're all different. Okay? So what might work for me might not work for you. What might work for you might not work for me. But that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Okay, I think that's actually all for this. Yes, it is. Okay. And there were a few other things that I want to briefly mention here about what people have, said, just in my own comments that I've seen, where these people have very strong cognitive dissonance as well. Something I've talked heavily about is diets, healthy eating, okay? And this is a topic that many scientists, it's like they don't have a clue what is the best diet. They don't have a clue what the most optimal diet is. Science does not have that answer because everyone is different. So if I'm sitting here promoting, clean eating, eating well, eating organic, eating non-GMO foods, eating things that I think are very, very healthy for you, and eating plant-based foods, and having a diet that's very low in toxins, there are going to be many people who say you are very wrong with this idea. You are not right with this idea. Another thing, if I talk about, if I'm promoting a vegan diet and I'm saying how there are all these benefits of it and how I don't believe, in the animal cruelty aspect, and there's many people who eat animals and they can't accept the idea that, wait a minute, an animal has to live and then be killed in order for me to have this sandwich, for me to have this pizza, for me to have this whatever else you're going to eat, this hot dog, this a burger, okay? An animal has to live and then die, and they can't comprehend that because that is the cognitive dissonance of these conflicting ideas. Like, wow, I just love this burger so much, but wait a minute, animals dying? I love animals. And that's another thing. It's like, if you love animals but you eat them, it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, it's conflicting. It's this cognitive dissonance, okay? Something else I've talked about, and here's where we get more into the controversial things. I've talked about many mental health challenges that I've faced and how I've helped myself, and I talk about psychiatric medication. I've said, psychiatric medication, the whole premise behind it is essentially to fix a chemical imbalance, despite the fact that the chemical imbalance theory is speculation. It is just speculation. It's not actually something that has been scientifically proven at this time. I've never seen that. There is no evidence that I've seen for that idea. But many people who take this medication, again, I'm not trying to be mean or hateful to these people. Like, they take things very personally. I'm just stating a different opinion, but they can't fathom that idea that they're taking the medication for a chemical imbalance, but it's just a theory, and the fact that it causes a chemical imbalance. So they can't put those two and two together. I've talked about very briefly. I've talked about cancer and chemotherapy, and how chemotherapy is essentially doesn't really get rid of the cancer because it kills a lot of the healthy cells as well, which will end up fighting the cancer given the right nutrients. But also how chemotherapy doesn't address the aspect of the cancer stem cells, so the cancer may end up coming back, and it's been shown in many cases that it can indeed. And then, other very controversial topics as well. I've talked about autism as well. I've talked about how a lot of people really think, it is a genetic component, that it's strictly genetics. And again, that is not true, because there's a lot more research coming out now that's even showing that environmental toxins have an impact. And many people can't comprehend the fact that they live in this state of cognitive dissonance because they only believe that autism can be caused by a genetic component, okay? So when I present them this information from very reputable sources about some of these new findings with autism and heavy metals in the brain, such as aluminum, did you know that those with autism have very high aluminum content in the brain? More so than those with Alzheimer's. Okay, so when I present that information to them, what do they do with that information from reputable sources? They don't do anything with it. They just call me, a conspiracy theorist for talking about it being environmental factors, even though it's been documented, it's been shown. And to go hand in hand with that as well, with talking about vaccines as well. Many people can correlate that with autism. Many people don't correlate that with autism. That's a huge debate in itself. But I've, just in the regard of vaccines specifically, I've talked about vaccines having heavy metals in them, such as mercury and aluminum. And I've talked about that, and people have even said it was in vaccines, but it's not in anymore. And again, I present them with the information that is not true. I mean, it shows it right on the CDC's website. There's a whole article on CDC's website about the adjuvants, the aluminum adjuvants. Mercury that is used in it, thimerosal, is used as a preservative, which really isn't used much anymore. But aluminum is. So they have this conflicting idea in their mind that, wait a minute, vaccines, safe and effective, helps prevent disease. And then they have on the other end, well, wait a minute, heavy metals, aluminum, toxic, brain damage. And they can't connect those two there because there's a disconnect. And this disconnect is cognitive dissonance, okay? So as I said, I've talked about the metals. Very, very potent metal is amorphous aluminum hydroxyphosphate sulfate. That's one of the most toxic ones, the most interesting one, actually, that I've really looked into. But again, they exist, but people choose to block that out. People choose to not really pay attention to it. Again, that's the cognitive dissonance. You can see how you can have this cognitive dissonance in your mind. Because we all have it about something, okay? There's something that we have this cognitive dissonance about in our mind. Let's move on to how, for all of you watching right now, what are some examples people have with a cognitive dissonance in your life? Or what about you? What have you had cognitive dissonance about? I'll take a look at your messages shortly, but let's actually move on to how cognitive dissonance is used by narcissists as a form of abuse. So cognitive dissonance used as a form of abuse. Cognitive dissonance is an abuse tactic utilized by the narcissistic abuser to confuse the victim of abuse. That's what this is all about, confusing people. Because as we talked about, it's going to be this conflicting ideas in our minds. An abused child will experience cognitive dissonance when their abuser says one thing and does the opposite. Who here, you don't have to answer this if it's too private, but who here has a parent who has promised one thing but not delivered and have done the opposite? Who here has a partner who has done one thing but has done the opposite? I'm sure many of us can answer that. I'm sure many of us know someone who is like that. Yep. So, sounds like my parents. So yes, they may be told how loved they are, only to be abandoned when sick. They may be promised a special gift, only to be told when the gift is asked later that they were never promised the gift. Again, these are abuse tactics by a narcissist. They begin to suffer from cognitive dissonance, a very uncomfortable whole body feeling which completely takes over the child's mind and body. The child often turns the feeling back onto themselves and blames themselves for the abuse in an effort to remain attached to their abusive parent. Are they nice or are they cruel? Why do they do such lovely, amazing things for me and then hit me? Oh, it must be me that brings the worst out in my parents. Why else would they hit me? They provide for me so well. So you see this state this state of cognitive dissonance in this child's mind. It's like on one end, they know that their parent is cruel and abusive, but on the other end, it is, wait a minute, what is going on here? It's like you promise one thing, but you're not delivering that, and you're doing all this abusive thing. So it creates, this is actually a tactic that is used for personality disorders and dissociative disorders, because it creates a split in the mind. Think about it. If you have these two conflicting beliefs about your parents, if you have one belief that your parent was amazing, like she was an awesome mom, an awesome father, whatever, and then you completely block out and repress the whole aspect where they severely abused you, physical, emotional, even sexual abuse. You block that part out. So you have this split that is behind the wall of denial. Unless, of course, they are extremely intuitive and knowledgeable about narcissistic abuse. So again, anyone who is vulnerable to cognitive dissonance, it's most people, unless you are intuitive. That's what I try to teach. I try to teach you being able to be intuitive and understand and knowledgeable about narcissistic abuse. A narcissist is very charming. They like to manipulate you. They know what you're going to do before you do it, and they have a plan already in place. Okay? They have many, many plans in place. Victims of cognitive dissonance often feel as though they are going crazy, turn the cognitive dissonance back onto themselves, blame themselves for it, and believe it is just one more factor which proves that they are a crazy, unstable person. The awful feelings associated with cognitive dissonance are the very reason why abuse victims continue to stay in the relationship with the abuser. So I'm sure we've all heard this before. This is like one of those classic type of relationships where there is a lot of abuse, a lot of fighting, people separate, and then they get back together. And then they just keep repeating it. They abuse each other, they yell at each other, and they get back together. It's because they have this strong cognitive dissonance in their mind. Okay, abused children often make excuses for the abusive parent in order to release the anxiety they feel due to cognitive dissonance. Well, if you have a parent who is abusive towards you, it's like, well, they were just reprimanding me because I was acting up. Again, that's the internalization. You're blaming their actions that they did where they hurt you and abused you on yourself. You're making an excuse. You have a partner who is very abusive towards you, who hates you, who calls you all these names. Well, maybe I deserved it. He's just saying that because, this and that reason. He's just saying that because he's just angry. That's just an excuse. It's a very clever excuse. The decision the victim often takes is the pathway offering less emotional pain. So it's easier to just accept something as positive and good than it is to actually face the challenges. It's a sad thing. So what are your thoughts on this? Let me take a brief moment to actually read some of these comments here. Okay. Let's see, 784 says, one day I might think of something or someone in a positive way. Other days I think negative about them. Again, I think that is something that is very common as well. We can have very conflicting thoughts and beliefs about people in our lives. We can have many different ideas about, it's almost like a love-hate type of thing. Love and hate relationship, love and hate things going on where we just hate someone one moment and then we love them the next for whatever reason that is. Okay? That can stem from something maybe that they have done, or it can stem from something in our past that we need to face and overcome that has caused this cognitive dissonance in our past, such as this abuse. Okay, moving on to our final article about TV ads, PR campaigns, the news media, all this sort of stuff, because if we consume any sort of advertisements or media, we don't have to watch TV anymore. We have advertisements and news articles online that essentially are promoting and, these very harmful and false ideas, and are putting us in this state of cognitive dissonance. As I said, a lot of advertisements like to do this to sell products, which we'll see in just a moment. Cognitive dissonance in advertising. Advertisers try to paint a picture that your life isn't complete without their product or their service. Does this sound familiar? Do you see commercials where, you see like a TV advertisement for some sort of like beauty product, and this woman just looks amazing, this is just amazing. And then it makes you feel upset. It's like, gosh, I wish I had that product to look amazing. Because you have this idea in your mind, well, wait a minute, I'm not amazing now. I don't look good now. I'm ugly now. I need this product to look beautiful. Then you buy the product, then you use the product, and guess what? It's not going to change much of anything about you. You're not going to magically feel how this woman felt on a TV commercial. It's exaggerated. But that's the cognitive dissonance, because you have these conflicting ideas in your mind of, I'm not beautiful, so I need this product, as opposed to, I'm beautiful, I don't need this product. A lot of advertisements are set up where they make this explicit claim that you're only cool or beautiful or worthy or some other positive attribute if you own this product or service. So, just as I said, if you own it, you feel amazing and beautiful. Without it, you won't. Again, this is a very tricky tactic by the advertisements that are online, television commercials, all that. You can reject the claim completely, which is what a very strong-minded people do, but it's really not the most common option. It's very hard to reject it. Resolve the dissonance by accepting the message and changing your behavior. So that would essentially mean that accepting the fact that maybe you're not really confident or happy with yourself and you need another product. You can modify your original belief system, or you can resolve the cognitive dissonance by actually buying what they're selling. Very hard to do. As I said, if you have this cognitive dissonance, it has to be addressed in some way. Cognitive dissonance in PR. Public relations experts also use cognitive dissonance theory as they try to sway the people think or behave, usually by presenting information to move people to their side. Okay, so this is something also the news media does a lot. What many people aren't aware of is that news media is very biased. They are on one side of the debate. They are not unbiased, okay? You have media on both sides. You can have a lot of the television media and the mainstream media is very on one side. And then you have more independent and alternative media, which is very much usually on the other side, okay? There is no right or wrong way in that aspect. It's just what people gravitate towards, okay? But the fact is that a lot of the mainstream media, it is about projecting the idea that there is only one right way, okay? That's why you only hear one side of the debate. That's why when they interview people who, let's say they interview they would never. Okay, here's actually a very good example. Let's say, CBD has so many wonderful benefits, okay? I've talked heavily about CBD. Okay, so CBD has even been shown to help people with a cancer. Marijuana has been able to help people with cancer. many people who are, who study cancer, and the scientists and the oncologists, they will not like that idea of someone using a natural remedy for cancer as opposed to chemotherapy drugs, which essentially, kill the entire body. Okay? So in that way, if the news media does a story about, people using marijuana to help with cancer, they will very likely only interview the oncologists and the doctors and the scientists, and which will say, taking marijuana is actually very, very risky, and you're putting your health at risk, and you could die because it may not work. There's no scientific evidence that shows that it works. Are they going to talk to the people who have been greatly benefited and helped by this plant? Not likely. Or if they do, a lot of times, and I've seen this as well, and I've heard about this, they will talk to someone for a very, very long time and interview them. And unless they say something that the news station wants, they will heavily, shorten that segment and that interview down to, just like a sentence or two, or they may scrap it out entirely because they don't want to present a different idea. And why is that? Why don't they want to present a different idea? It's because a lot of the mainstream media is funded by the pharmaceutical industry. So if they're trying to sell, drugs, and think of it as like a product placement or a marketing tactic. So there's a lot of, scares in the news media about, these public health things that are going on. Okay, there are a lot of things in the news media that are intended to scare you and make you think, oh my gosh, there is a big one now is this outbreak of measles, as they call it, and it's to promote a product. Is essentially what it is. It's to promote a product for that. So again, it's a marketing tactic that is used by the news media. Okay, so cognitive dissonance affects what media we consume. People look to media or specific media outlets to affirm their beliefs. This is very true. If I disagree, like someone watching this right now, let's say we don't see eye to eye. Let's say we don't agree on a lot of different things. I may go to my alternative sources of information and a media to get my point across, whereas you may go to the more mainstream sources of information to get your point across, because we only consume those two. You see that? I may only consume the media and information that affirms my beliefs. This confirmation bias. Okay, so I'm only going to consume media that's going to confirm what I'm saying is true, and you're only going to consume media that confirms what you're saying is true, and then we can't see eye to eye. We have to look at both sides, and it's very hard to look at both sides, because when we look at the other side, we may get angry, we may get upset, and we feel cognitive dissonance. Okay, so cognitive dissonance in communication can be manipulative. Cigarette ads from the 1960s and 70s that continue to paint smoking as glamorous even after science had started to reveal its true dangers. So even prior to this, you would have, doctors recommending smoking or making it look cool. You would have the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, this company that's supposed to watch out for our health, essentially lies about cigarettes back in the day, saying it doesn't cause cancer. And now they're very anti-smoking. There's a lot of things that they post about you shouldn't smoke. But you see how that changed? So back then, if they thought that their way was the only right way and that it didn't cause any, issues, they knew that it did. They knew that the science was there showing that it caused cancer, but they continued to promote the idea that it did not cause cancer. Okay? And, the tobacco industry even was guilty of manipulating a lot of data there. And I don't know if you've seen it on television. It may be over now, but I remember for a whole year, at prime time hours in the evening, I think it was around between 7 to 8 o'clock, they have to show an advertisement on TV that says that they hid the true dangers of cigarettes and that it does cause cancer. Now, they made the ad the most unappealing thing. It's literally a black screen with white text. Who has seen that ad? I have seen that ad on TV. I actually saw it maybe the first or second day that it started to air because I was following the story for a while, and I was very excited to actually see it. And then when I did, it was like, no one's going to watch this. No one's going to read that because the text isn't even all that large. It's like silence too. So if you're watching TV and commercial comes up, you bring up your phone, you're not even paying attention, you don't even see the ad. So even that is manipulated, so you don't know. You don't even know. It's just, it's awful. It really is. A piece of exercise equipment that'll keep your heart healthy, for example, or even switch to a toxin-free deodorant could end up being a good influence. So this is how cognitive dissonance could lead to positive behavior. So if, exercise equipment, very, very good for you to exercise and be healthy. Toxin-free deodorant. What's the toxin-free deodorant? Deodorant has aluminum in it. As we talked before, aluminum is a neurotoxin that has no use in the human body whatsoever. But, obviously, consuming aluminum versus getting it in through your skin or injecting it is very, very different. But yes, most of the time, deodorant will use aluminum particles to clog the pores of your underarms. Can you avoid cognitive dissonance? No, you can't. But the plus side is that acknowledging these ads and resolving any conflicts they present can lead to increased self-awareness. That's what this is all about, self-awareness. Rather than feeling frustrated by the tension the cognitive dissonance creates, know that it's a natural process that all human beings go through. We all have cognitive dissonance. We've all had this, okay? So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any questions about this? Because we move into the Q&A segment here. As the Streamlabs bot just said, have any questions? Yes, do you have any questions about this topic or anything else further you would like to discuss in this field? This is an interesting topic, as I said, we've all been affected by cognitive dissonance. This is something that affects all of us, our mental health. Okay? So, just give it a minute here. So, if anyone has any questions, please let me know now. Otherwise, I would like to thank you for watching this broadcast here. We will still be going live next week, May 10th, so I look forward to chatting with you then. And I do invite you also to come and join me over on Twitch for gaming, Asphodel Gaming. I'll be on there about 10 p.m. for some gaming. I will post that link in the chat for you to come check it out. But I would like to thank you all so very much for tuning in. It's a shame we didn't have too many more questions here, but that's just sometimes how it is, okay? So, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all again later, okay? Let's see. Okay, well, we got one question here right before we leave, so this will be the one that I take. Do you have any advice for persons who are in the highly sensitive purpose construct whose traumas are amplified? Someone looking at them wrong can feel like abuse. I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to there. Persons who are in the highly sensitive purpose, who are a highly sensitive person whose traumas are amplified. Looking at them wrong. Well, the best advice about that is to learn to strengthen yourself. Because as I've said, any sort of offense that someone says or someone does to us, we can take that personally, or we can learn to not take it personally. We choose to take offense personally. Okay? So if we can learn to lessen that and not be affected by the opinions of others, then we will have great success with that. And that is very hard for people who have dealt with trauma. Absolutely. Because they can feel like their point of view is not valid. So it's just about validifying your own self, making yourself feel worthy and happy and loved and accepted. To look at yourself in the mirror and then say, you know, this is a very happy and positive person in this mirror. This is me. I'm very happy. I'm very positive, and I'm able to accomplish all these wonderful, wonderful things. Okay. So, what time is it over here? It is 7:50 p.m. Eastern time. That is my time frame. So, all right. So that's where I'm going to end it. I want to thank you all so very much for tuning in. As I said, I will be live on a Twitch if you would like to come check me out. If there is someone playing a game on there at this time, it's probably someone that I'm hosting. But I should be live on there around 10 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. So about 2 hours from now. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you there if you want to come and join, and I will catch you all later, okay? Bye-bye.